Layer 6. Deep Waters. There's no turning back now. At this point, you need to look into the game behind the scenes to know what these are. Unused textures. During the game's development, many ideas were thrown around for the game, and obviously, not all would appear in the final version. Taking a look inside the game's files can reveal some interesting things that were planned for the game but were never added. Here are some examples of unused textures I found noteworthy. First up is the sprite sheet for Bomb, an unused Angry Bird that I will touch on later. His full sprite sheet exists in the files, suggesting he was very nearly added. Only his sleeping sprites are used in the game as an ambient object. Next up is this miner's helmet, which was probably an early version of the explorer's hat. Next are some unused part skins. There's a red and white spring, a red, white, and green sandbag, an injured version of this boxing glove, and a few others which I don't really have time to mention. There's also a bitten cake sprite, but I'm not sure what this would have been used for. There are also two unused expressions for Ross, an angry face and an alternate scared face. There is also an entire unused part, the monster truck wheel. This wheel was only in the game in version 1.4 and removed very shortly after. The wheel acted like a very large and bouncy wheel and was only available in sandbox levels. The data for it still exists in the game's code and can be accessed through modding. Fake versions with viruses. Like all games, Bad Piggies has ripoffs, pirated versions, hacked versions, and versions with viruses that exist to destroy everything you have because they think it's a good laugh. This entry is self-explanatory and I won't go any deeper. I'm not willing to go that far for my videos. Swell Type. Swell Type is a company that specializes in making custom fonts. They make various commercial and custom fonts for various large media companies. They are known for designing the fonts of Avatar, Clash Royale, Marvel Strike Force, and various logos. And they were also hired by Rovio to make the iconic fonts of Angry Birds, Bad Piggies, and Angry Birds Stella. Sadly, they have been mostly forgotten in the history of Angry Birds. Most of their fonts are available in the Latin and Cyrillic alphabets, with optional accent characters for European language support. Christmas Pigs. Entering the courtroom around Christmas time will turn all the pigs surrounding the king pig into Christmas pigs. It's a small detail, but it's nice nonetheless. There's also a Santa skin for the king pig and an elf skin for Ross, available all year round. Tesla Glitch. The Tesla Glitch is a curious glitch that allows a contraption to have extreme engine power without any weighty engines attached. For example, this small car with no engines can be turned into a speedy machine with this glitch. I'm not going to explain how to perform this glitch as it's incredibly complex, but you can check the link below to learn how to do it. Apparently, the cause of the glitch has been fixed recently, but there's still a way to do it, it's just more complex than the first way. I recommend trying this out for yourself, it can make for some very fast vehicles. Level 5-21. Level 5-21 is a level in Tusk Till Dawn which has been infamous for being extremely hard to freestart until now because of a physics glitch. One of the conditions for getting a star is completing the level without using a grappling hook, meaning you need to let the pig roll and get propelled to the finish by the TNT. For some reason, a glitch causes the pig to bounce back to the start, and both spots on the board have the same effect. The level was previously thought to be impossible to freestart until someone discovered that the glitch could be fixed by using the Frankenstein pig skin to complete the level. Still, it was thought to be unfair that the only way to beat the level was with a skin. Personally, I'm not really surprised that this glitch exists when you consider just how poorly Bad Piggies was coded, considering all the other glitches in the game. The glitch was fixed fairly recently in a patch. Unused sounds. Bad Piggies has various unused sounds, like the aforementioned in-flight song. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to find a source that lists the unused sounds, so I'm assuming that there are sounds in the files which aren't used in the game and that I can't find. If you could please point them out, that would help me a lot. Editor Ross here. Turns out that shortly after I made the script, I actually managed to find a collection of unused pig sounds used in the beta version of Bad Piggies, something I will touch on later. The sounds are more crude versions of pig sounds, and they were probably used as placeholders while the real sounds were being made. I'm honestly glad they didn't stick with these old sounds, as they have the same energy as the Super Mario 64 beta sounds in my opinion. I don't think these are all of the unused sounds in the game, but it's definitely better than finding nothing. Layer 7, the Twilight Zone. This layer covers facts and media outside of the game. Knowledge of the game itself won't help you here. Leonard is in Bad Piggies. Leonard is not in Bad Piggies. Leonard is a character made for the Angry Birds movie, which came out 4 years after the release of the game. I reached out to the creator about this entry, and he said that there was a painting of Leonard in the courtroom. There are 2 paintings in the courtroom, and neither of them resemble Leonard. Another explanation is that since Leonard is King Pig's father in the game continuity, this would make King Pig's name Leonard since names are passed down through royal families. This would mean the Leonard in the game is actually just King Pig, making this entry true. However, I don't think that's true either, since the creator most likely meant King Pig's father and not King Pig himself. This might be a joke entry. Chinese Bad Piggies. There's a version of Bad Piggies made for the Chinese market, but very little is known about it. It was distributed by TalkWeb, a Chinese media distributor that is known for distributing various mobile games in China. This version is probably unchanged from the main version, as the game is already family friendly, and the Angry Birds series has been a huge hit in China. Pig Latin. Ik pay tinley is ye a anguagely aid me by a kingte ife ersfe ederly of ye a erdway, and fe uting pi it ye anye ife and ye ave. If a earthway anye ating pi a anye if by anye as more complicated kai and fe at say by uye on kai odai umsai eserchai anye ife language lay itself ye if a uye antway ote infe oute orme as arfe ase ea okne ik pay a tinley ashe one usye inye ife angry erdsbay anchise free at ye ole. Aye ante okne ui isfe ishe earhai. Pig Latin is a language made by taking the first letter of a word, then putting it on the end of the word and putting AY on the end. It's a bit more complicated than just that, but you can do some research on the language itself if you want to find out more. As far as I know, Pig Latin has no use in the Angry Birds franchise at all. I don't know why this is here. Pigs do not speak Pig Latin or any kind of human language in the series. This entry might be a joke entry. Hire a mechanic. There's a power-up in the game called Super Mechanic. It summons the mechanic pig to build vehicles for you that can get all 3 stars. It's the game's equivalent of Mighty Eagle in Angry Birds. However, in older versions of the game, this power-up did not exist, along with the other power-ups. The predecessor to Super Mechanic was a feature called Hire a Mechanic. For some real money, you could buy mechanic pigs to build vehicles for you. This mechanic was more crude than in later versions, because the vehicles were only made to get to the finish and not get 3 stars. Bad Piggies Cookbook. Yes, there exists a Bad Piggies Cookbook. It was made in late 2011 by Arovio with some help from this author. It contains various egg recipes, and it's supposed to be a cookbook for the pigs when they finally get the eggs. The cookbook also exists in the Angry Birds universe, where it was written by Chef Pig there. It contains a variety of dishes from appetizers to desserts, but the one thing they all have in common is that they incorporate eggs in some shape or form. There's also an app version of the book, but it's gone now. You can still find the book on Amazon, and I recommend it to anyone who likes cooking and Angry Birds. Layer 8, the Midnight Zone. This layer covers things within the game that are so obscure that even hardcore players will never even know about them. It also covers some very interesting lore theories. Oh, and are you still watching? If so, that means you're statistically very likely to subscribe to my channel if I give you a little reminder. No pressure. Jolly good day, sir. This entry refers to the developer menu in Bad Piggies. Activating cheats in the code will cause a button to appear called Open Cheats. it opens a menu full of cheats, which are used for debugging and testing purposes. In the background of this menu, there's an image of King Pig yelling at a pig with a top hat and a monocle, along with the text, "Jolly good day, sir." However, the "sir" is almost never seen, due to it being replaced with the name of the hardware the game is running on. For example, if you were using a Samsung Galaxy, the quote would read, "Jolly good day, Galaxy S7. In versions before 1.5, however, the text read, "Hello Peter" instead, which might have been a reference to one of the developers named Peter. Many cheats are included for testing purposes, ranging from free-starring all levels to unlocking all sandboxes to earning 1,000 snout coins. The pigs are the good ones. This is a theory that the pigs in Bad Piggies, and by extension the whole Angry Birds universe, are actually the protagonists of their world. Obviously, they take this role in Bad Piggies, but in the Angry Birds series, it's theorized that the pigs aren't actually bad, and the birds are bad for mercilessly slaughtering and injuring hundreds of pigs and destroying their cities just to get their eggs, which for some reason have never hatched. Are the birds just killing pigs for the fun of it? It's very dark to think about. Besides, the king pig never wanted to harm the birds in any way at first, and only wanted their eggs, which could be unfertilized and therefore only good for eating. Rovio themselves have confirmed that the pigs are not evil, they are just hungry. The eggs could also be useless since they won't ever hatch, meaning the birds are fighting a lost cause. All the evidence points to the birds being far from the good ones, rather they are psychotic serial killers who have very bad anger problems, and are just killing pigs for a few eggs which will never hatch. The reason why the pigs are trying to keep the birds away is because the king pig is trying to protect his kingdom from these winged terrorists. Try to think about this next time you're playing Angry Birds. Pigs have no sexuality except for some. I haven't been able to find anything on this topic, so I made my own theory on this. I'm not saying this is the correct answer to this topic, it's just an educated guess. But essentially, this is a theory that states that most of the pigs that are seen in the Angry Birds universe, specifically minion pigs, are actually clones, rendering them genderless and also sterile, meaning no sexuality as the title suggests. There's actually a lot of evidence to support this, and the first piece of evidence is the fact that it's very hard to actually tell the gender of the minion pigs. They all look the same and have the same voice, with no obvious male or female traits. Despite this, some of the pigs are obviously male. King Pig is easy to distinguish, along with Foreman Pig, Chef Pig, and Whiz Pig and Prince Pig from Angry Birds Epic, due to their male titles and features. Female pigs, on the other hand, are much rarer, but they do exist. For example, Courtney, from the Angry Birds movie 2. King Pig also has a delusion in Angry Birds Toons, where he imagines a cabbage as a queen pig, meaning he knows female pigs exist, and there's also a few female pigskins in Bad Piggies itself. It's theorized, therefore, that pig society is divided between true pigs, the original pig species, which most of the upper pigs belong to, and the clone pigs, cheap and expendable workforce that can be mass-produced and commanded by the true pigs. This would make their society almost like an ant colony with the way it functions. The true pigs are treated as superior in every way, commanding hordes of cloned pigs, while the clone pigs are being treated as expendable with no regard for their well-being, even being sent out to guard the forts that get destroyed by the Angry Birds, with the true pigs using them as cannon fodder. How do these pigs get cloned? Nobody knows at this point. It's also worth noting that there are some minion pigs that are actually true pigs, distinguished by genetic differences. The clone pigs are all genetically the same, but some of the minion pigs have differences which establish them as true pigs. Ross from Bad Piggies is confirmed as male, and also has freckles, meaning he is a true pig. In the Angry Birds Toons episode Slumberville, the lumberjack pig is a true pig established by the fact that he is privileged enough in pig society to own a house, unlike the cramped barracks the clone pigs live in. He also grows facial hair in the episode. Bad Piggies is technically a 3D game. While Bad Piggies in practice functions as a 2D game, it's made using Unity, a 3D game engine. While the third axis is normally hidden in normal gameplay, it does exist, and a certain bug can be used to prove this. Unfortunately, the glitch is very hard to explain, and I don't want to make another long entry after the previous lore entries. But basically, this is a glitch that completely breaks down the game physics, allowing for item duplication, even with pigs, as well as complete chaos with the rendering of the sprites, which can actually cause them to break into the third dimension. If done properly, the glitch makes the textures rotate around the third axis and break out of the building grid. They are still only 2D textures though, so they will look like paper. Bad Piggies is technically a 3D game, although it functions as 2D normally. Layer 9. The Abyss. This layer is unfortunately so obscure that not even I, who has done the research in and out for this video, can find out much about it. Origin of the Bat Pigs. The Bat Pigs are a curious game mechanic only found in the night levels of the road to El Porcado. They can be found in the dark spaces in the level, with only their eyes visible. There can be several of them in the level, and sometimes they can be necessary to beat the level. Bat Pigs usually hold objects like star boxes, TNT, or just regular metal crates. Bat Pigs disappear after being exposed to light, dropping the objects they are holding. This can be a good thing if the pig is holding a crate or star box, as the crate can push a button which unlocks the goal, and the star box helps you get free stars. However, they can also just drop TNT on you if you're not careful. Normally, they disappear instantly when exposed to light, making it hard to see them. However, you can see the silhouette for a split second before it vanishes, revealing that the body of a bat pig is identical to a normal pig, but with tiny bat wings that allow it to fly. It's theorized then that the bat pigs are an ancient variant of the pig who lived in the mountains and evolved to fly to counter the harsh terrain. They could have also built the ruined city of El Porcado and invented all of its technology. For some reason, their civilization crumbled a long time ago, leaving the ruined city behind and living in hiding from the modern pigs who ruled the island. This collapse could have been due to either the birds or the pigs, as the birds have set up camp in the city. Considering that the birds could be genocidal maniacs, as discussed in a previous theory, it's not that far-fetched to think that they brought down the Bad Pig civilization. It could also be caused by the modern pigs, who could possibly have pillaged the city for their treasures in hell. This is another personal theory of mine, so again, I'm not saying it's true, just a guess. Emojis. To be honest, I have no idea what this is referring to. I reached out to the creator and he said that if you open Bad Piggies with Unity, you can find unused emojis. I have not been able to find anything on this topic. If you could show me those emojis, that would help me out a lot. Random textures. I have absolutely zero idea as to what this entry means. I'm assuming it's probably a duplicate of the unused textures entry, but I could be wrong. Bad Piggies text got leaked. Again, another entry I have no idea about. Talked to its creator again, and he said the title font, made by Swell Type, was leaked somehow. I can't find anything about this either, and apparently the only proof of this entry's existence is from a Bad Piggies channel, which I can't find. Another pig language. As it turns out, the pigs and birds in the Angry Birds universe have their own language made up of various vocal noises that they are capable of making. This language is completely incomprehensible to us, but the only proof I was able to find of this language was a Twitter post linked by the creator. I will just quote the post. The Angry Birds and Bad Piggies have their own established language featured in many pieces of media. An example of this would be egg being Aina, revealed to be spelt like that in Slingshot stories. This language still appears in modern media, such as shows. Unfortunately, I have been unable to find the Twitter post, so I'll link a wiki page for the language instead. Bomb. Bomb is one of the most iconic Angry Birds, but for whatever reason, he is strangely absent from Bad Piggies. He never appears as an actual enemy, and in fact his only in-game appearance is in level 4-10 as an ambient object on top of the cliff above the player. He sleeps with Red, and there is no slingshot so he doesn't even bother waking up. However, there's an unused sprite sheet of all of Bomb's costumes in the files, as mentioned previously in the unused textures entry. He was most likely developed with flight in the night, but was not added most likely due to balancing concerns, because if he was added he would probably be too strong of an obstacle to overcome. After all, he is a literal bomb, and he would most likely have made levels with him very hard, as his explosion could be very strong. Before we discuss the last layer of this iceberg, I'd like to talk about some bonus entries that didn't make it onto the iceberg, but that I thought were interesting to discuss. Main menu level. An interesting mechanic I found in Bad Piggies is that you can actually activate the abilities of parts by clicking on them. While you can use the blue buttons, which are easier, you can just click the parts if you want to. Now, this mechanic just seems ordinary and hardly worth talking about, but where it gets really interesting is on the main menu. Now, if you've waited on the main menu for long enough, you most likely have seen these contraptions go by across the screen. The main menu, turns out, is actually an inaccessible level used only to provide collision to the menu contraptions. It's not a very interesting level, as there are just 2 obstacles, if you can even call them that, so it wouldn't be worth playing anyway. As for the contraptions, there are actually several different pre-made contraptions that you can see, and the only difference is that every time the parts have a different skin. Turns out, the mechanic of clicking parts to activate them actually works on these contraptions. I'm not sure if this is intentional or not, given that the code for activating parts could have just been left in there, but it's pretty funny to click on the parts and ruin the pig's day by making their contraption fail. This entry isn't some super obscure fact or groundbreaking theory, but it's something I'd like to discuss here too. Unofficial Flash version. Shortly after Bad Piggies was released, an unofficial version was made with Flash. So, having to do the research for this video, I played it for myself on Internet Archive to see what was the deal with it, and I'm honestly not even sure what to say about this game. It's not horrible as a Flash game, but as a port of Bad Piggies, it unfortunately fails to even capture what made the original so great. The levels are just copies of the original game levels, and the icons are just low-quality versions of the real ones, despite the game claiming it's HD. This game is deep in the uncanny valley, where something looks so similar to the original but is just a little off in some way, which throws the whole thing off. The graphics for the pig are actually custom made, and look very close to the original but are noticeably different. Notably, the pig also bleeds and gets all beaten up if he takes too much damage, which is an odd design choice, but it's a nice detail. The game is also laggy as hell. Seriously, look at this just runs at like 2 frames per second, and comes with a strange bug where parts just appear on the level for no reason. In general, it's unfortunately not worthy to be a port of Bad Piggies, but I imagine it was probably made for kids whose parents weren't willing to pay like $3 for a real thing. There are many good Flash games out there, but this is just not it. Bad Piggies beta build. Shortly after I uploaded part 1 of this iceberg, I was made aware by Christian the Meme that he found the development build of Bad Piggies. He then proceeded to give me most of the relevant sources for this entry, so here's a special thank you to Christian the Meme for helping me with this. In December 2023, a beta build of Bad Piggies, version 0.1.3 specifically, was discovered by a few iOS users through an app called TestFlight, an app made by Apple for app developers to upload beta versions of apps. The build is not far too different from the earliest known release build, so it's not some super groundbreaking discovery like the Super Mario 64 beta for instance, but it's still worth talking about. Since the leak, several people have played into it further and have uploaded videos of it, which for some strange reason keep getting removed by Rovio according to Christian. I'm still not exactly sure why would they want to cover this up of all things, but we can still find out a lot from the videos that remain. Unsurprisingly, the aforementioned cheat menu is present in this build, as I imagine it would have been used a lot. Some other differences include the usage of the aforementioned beta pig sounds, along with more crude graphics and sounds. For example, the star boxes look just like TNT boxes with a painted star, and the level graphic borders are very thin for some reason. When you complete a level, the Angry Birds level complete sound plays instead of the current one. Also, the level progression is quite interesting, because in this prototype, there are just 2 chapters, Groundhog Day and When Pigs Fly, with 1 sandbox chapter at the end. A big difference is that in the prototype chapters, there are actually 45 main levels instead of 36 main levels and 9 blue bonus levels. However, every 5th level is blue, so they were implementing the bonus levels at the time this beta was made. Also, when you actually play the blue levels, they're actually the exact same as they are in the final version, but what's very interesting is that they actually have the Groundhog Day graphics. There's a lot more to this beta than just what I mentioned, but I may make a video just for it in the future. I don't want to make another super long entry, so on to the next layer. Bad Piggies and Xbox. At first, this topic may seem downright stupid given that there is no console port of Bad Piggies, but there's actually an unused piece of code in the game called M_Xbox layout. This suggests a port for Xbox consoles was actually considered at some point. There's no mention of it anywhere else, and right now the only console games from the whole Angry Birds franchise are Angry Birds Trilogy and Angry Birds Star Wars. However, given that there's only one piece of code, I don't really consider this definitive proof that a port was considered at all, as this code could just be named coincidentally when really it was just a random piece of code. So is this proof of a port or not? It's up to you to decide. Random floating items. Normally, the camera is locked to the confines of the level, preventing you from seeing outside. This is usually a good thing because there's almost nothing outside except the endless void. Even the background stops rendering past a certain point. However, you can use mods like BPLE to view what's outside the level. Normally, there's not much to note around here, but something interesting can be found in the Little Pig Adventure sandbox. Directly below the floor, there's actually a full sprite sheet of textures that are found throughout the level, like plants and bricks to signs and speeders. These textures have no collision, and they were most likely used in the texturing process of the level, as it probably would have been very useful as a copy and paste palette. The sprite sheet's existence is probably just an oversight by the developers, as I imagine similar palettes would have been used to create the other levels. Normally they would have deleted the sheets after they were done, but I guess they forgot to delete this one for whatever reason. Something else I found noteworthy was the fact that vehicle parts used by the player actually occur naturally in two levels: Flight in the Night Sandbox 1 and Tusk Till Dawn Bonus Level 1. In the far corner of the sandbox, there's a small tunnel with a few scattered parts, most likely from a trash contraption. Was the pilot of this ill-fated vehicle the same one whose skull was left behind the levels? It's definitely something to think about. In the bonus level, there's a cobweb with parts stuck in it as well. Also, on the far right to the sprite sheet in Little Pig Adventure, there is a singular balloon hanging out. I guess when the team was making the sandbox, they disconnected it from the sprite sheet. Or maybe there's some lore behind this runaway balloon, I'm kidding. Leftover files in Bad Piggies. I'm still not really sure what this entry means, but I have a pretty good guess. This might refer to the fact that some versions of the game have features that other versions don't, but their files remain in the respective versions. For example, only the iOS versions of the game have achievements, but the achievement icons can be found in the files of the other ports of the game. Another example of these leftover files are the old ads for other Angry Birds games. As usual, I contacted the creator about this entry, but he said that this entry referred to the fact that there were leftover files in the game left by Unity, the game engine used to make the game. However, I couldn't find anything about this, so I used my own theory on this, meaning this entry isn't the intended fact. Ross's real name. Unfortunately, I have no good answer to this entry. The creator said that this entry was here because since the pigs and birds have their own language, Ross would be said differently in their language as opposed to Ross, which is English. And we don't know what exactly that name is as of yet. Still, I'm very disappointed to end this very interesting iceberg with such a small fact. But anyway, that's basically the end of the iceberg video. I hope you enjoyed this very interesting deep dive into Bad Piggies. My name is Ross MC, signing off. Hold on, I just got this weird letter in my mailbox. What does this say? The true name of Ross? And who sent it? There's no signature. Wait, what's that behind me? Sorry about that, some weird issues with my recording equipment. You heard nothing back there, I'm not even exactly sure what happened. So Ross doesn't have a secret name, his only name is Ross. So hope you enjoyed that iceberg video, and more videos coming soon.